Welcome everybody to our July webinar. Before I introduce our guest speakers tonight, I just want to say a few words about the Free PGC, the Free Principle Global Community. The Free PGC is a voluntary organization, and the aim is basically to spread the word about the free principle worldwide. To do so, there is those webinars, some podcasts and video, and also blogs on the website. So I encourage you to visit the www.freepgc.org website for all those nice video, blogs, and everything. So now I have the privilege to introduce you our guest speaker tonight, Shaul Rosenblatt. Shaul is the founder of A-UK, I hope I said that properly, Shaul, and Tikkun. And Tikkun is one of the major partners in organizing the Free Principle Conference here in the UK, in London, which I had the privilege to go to several years now, and it's really, really great. He's also the author of a book called Finding Light in the Darkness. And he was introduced to the Free Principle in 2005, and since then, he has been really a key player in spreading the word about the Free Principle in the United Kingdom. So, without further ado, to you, Shaul.
Well, thank you, Corinne. That's great. You really are a master, or maybe a mistress facilitator here. You really do a great job of it. Thank you for that. I also want to just take a moment to thank the 3PGC, whoever that might be. I don't want to mention any names because I'm going to miss a few out if I do. But I think it's incredible the content that you're providing. And the website and just but I think most importantly the leadership, the leadership in the community. I think the Free Principles community is a community that looks for leadership, and it's great that you guys are stepping up, and I applaud and support the work that you do. And just a thought also along those lines is I don't think it would be appropriate for me to give a sort of this talk without mentioning Sid and the lives she's affected, both directly and indirectly, myself very much included in that. And it goes without saying that kind of pretty much anything I say today, if you like it, then the credit goes to him. And if you don't like it, then you can blame me. So I just want to start with a little bit of a call to the Free Principles community. I figured this is a forum and an opportunity to sort of say a little thought on that. You know, Sid had a dream, and the dream of spreading these principles to the world, to the whole world, that there isn't a human being in this world that can't benefit from this understanding, can't benefit from having this sense of knowing what this world is really all about, and that really human suffering boils down to lack of understanding of this, lack of perspective that the Three Principles bring. And spreading it to the world is not an insignificant undertaking. And I do think that we as a community need to kind of think a little bit more strategically, a little bit more creatively. I think sometimes we kind of get caught up with the individuals who are in front of us, and I think that's really important. We need to care about individuals, but I also think we need to kind of be looking to the big picture as well, and as to how we can get the word out there, because there is a lot of suffering out there, as we all know. And I for one feel a sense of responsibility that these ideas that are so helpful for me, so helpful to my family, and so helpful to my community, to share them in a broader way, in as much as we can. So while I say the 3PGC is taking a great leadership role, I think we all need to kind of look at ourselves in that light and think what our role is and where we can do a little bit more, and maybe think a little bit out of the box. Beyond what we're doing right now, what the possibilities are, and what the potential is, and how we could share these ideas in a broader way. 3-4 years ago, I guess we didn't have this conference that we have over here, and thank God we had 450 people this year, and I'd love to dreaming to get 1,000 next year. So I think, and like I say, 3-4 years ago that didn't exist before. But I think the possibilities are endless, and I think there's a momentum, and I think we need to capitalize on that momentum and really make something happen. But getting down to sort of talking about the principles themselves. So one of the things I love, it just occurred to me as I was walking over here, the parallel there is between sort of the physical world and the spiritual world. That in essence, I studied physics at school and never went to university, even though I was planning on going. I wanted to be an engineer. I ended up getting into Judaism and becoming a rabbi instead. But I was very into physics, and one of the things physics teaches us is about particles. And there are three fundamental particles. Interesting, there should be three particles: electrons, neutrons, and protons. And those are absolutely simple and unsophisticated particles. They are pure simplicity. And yet you take those three particles and you put them in different combinations, and they create an incredibly sophisticated and complex universe. There isn't a single thing in this universe that isn't made up of those three particles, and only those three particles, and all of those three particles at the same time. And from those particles come flowers and animals and human beings and planets and suns and stars and supernovae and black holes and who knows what, just from those three particles. Amazing how incredibly sophisticated and complex the universe has come from such simple particles. And I think the parallel with the three principles is very clear and obvious. You know, in the same way in the spiritual world, you have three particles, so to speak. You have three principles. And those three principles are simple, they're pure, they're unsophisticated, they're not complex, they're very pristine in their nature. And yet from those three principles comes the sophistication and the complexity of human experience. From those three principles alone, and from those three principles altogether. There's no such thing as a human experience that doesn't come from all three of them. You don't miss out one of them, you're not going to have the experience there. And it requires all three to create that experience. And it's incredible the parallel that there is over here. And I was thinking, in terms of that simplicity, in terms of the formless nature of these principles, this is the first time, you know, I'm kind of used to speaking to sort of Jewish audiences about these principles, and I surprised myself when I kind of thought back and I realized this is the first time I've actually spoken to a broader audience. And I kind of stood up at a conference and said hello to everybody and seen who's tried to give back people their lost glasses and whatever things might need organizing at the conference. But in essence, talking about the principles themselves, this is the kind of broadest audience I've spoken to, and I'm excited to do so. And I was thinking to myself, you know, well, if I'm speaking to a broad audience, I need to try and kind of get rid of sort of the Jewish elements of what I might kind of refer to. And I realized that's ridiculous. You know, I might as well say that, there's a lot of Americans maybe on this call, so it's better I hadn't speak about anything to do with England, you know, because we might offend their sensibilities or whatever it might be. We might talk about the Queen. They might start to feel insecure about the fact that they were once colonies and you know, get a bit of an inferiority complex. So I better avoid that. It's not true, and that's the beauty of these principles. Because they are formless, because they come before form, it doesn't really matter the form that you use to talk about them, as long as you're talking about them, as long as you're talking about the right things. So in my mind, because all of form is just an expression of the principles, so when you use form to talk about them, the nature of the form that you use is not particularly relevant. It's not important. So you could talk about it via art. You know, I'm sure you could use art to talk about the principles. I wouldn't know how to do that. It's not my type of thing, you know, but I'm sure you could. And you could talk about them through music. You know, I'm sure you could use music to talk about the principles. I'm sure you could use any number of things if you wanted to, because they are all expressions of the principles. Art is an expression of the principles. Music is an expression of the principles. Whatever it might be, any language, whatever language you want to use, as long as you're talking to the formless, then the form that you use is kind of irrelevant. And that was something that just kind of came to me today. And therefore, the fact that I'm kind of a rabbi and Judaism is my thing, that's sort of the form that I'll use to talk about them. And that's kind of what's behind my experience. And that's how my experience of them is expressed. And I think that's kind of what Sid meant when he used to talk about kind of religions and the fact that religions are just sort of an expression of the principles, which they are. And on that level, there's an equality between all of them, that each has the ability to talk about the principles in the same way. When you're talking about the principles, religions have the ability to talk about the principles equally. If you're talking about the religion, talk about Christianity, then you wouldn't use Judaism to talk about it, and vice versa. When you talk about the principles, it's a level playing field, and any kind of angle and language that you want to use that means something to you will have the potential to touch somebody else. So the content here today, the topic here today is insight without content. And I wanted to just firstly thank Linda and in particular Elsie for my topic, because it's something that I heard from the two of you at the conference. Just that phrase, and you only talked about it for I don't know, not even a minute maybe. But I was really touched by it, and it's interesting that of all the ideas that I heard at that conference, that phrase and that idea and that concept that you two talked about is the one that, just the thing that moved me the most. And that again is the beauty of these principles, that it's not, it's your understanding that's relevant over here. It's what you see. For some reason, I saw something in that, and I understood something from that, and something about that touched me, and I'm grateful to you two for that. And I thought I would talk about it a little bit more, and share a little bit more of kind of what it meant to me, and what insight is about, and how, in my mind, all insight is without content. I don't think there's such a thing as insight with content, because the content is not the insight. The insight is something that transcends any possible content that could emerge from it. Content emerges from insight, there's no question about it. And you might have insight that no content emerges from as well, but in essence, the way I see it, insight is not the content. And I think we can get a little distracted by that sometimes, and I certainly do, and that's why I thought it was worth talking about. I wanted to share an example of an insight to start with, though, that kind of just touched me recently. And I want to share it just because, as an example of how insight works and how insight plays out in us. I was just, it was 2 days ago, was the Jewish festival of Tisha B'Av, the 9th of Av. And today morning, a day where we kind of feel the pain of Jewish history. And somebody asked me the question of like, well, why would you want to dwell on the past, and why do you want to feel pain? And I was sort of reflecting on that, and I was touched by something. Something occurred to me, and it occurred to me at the time that I lost my father as well, a year or so ago. And that was that there's something very precious and very special about pain. When you don't resist it, and you just kind of allow yourself to get a little bit lost and peaceful in it. And that is that pain has the ability to just sort of distract you almost, or take you away from all the pettiness of your own thinking, of your own little system, of your own little world, and open you up to a bigger world, to a bigger sense of what we're about and what this world is. I think pain has the ability to let you be touched on a deeper level than you might otherwise be. I'm talking about kind of the deeper senses of pain that we go through in life. And here the insight that I had is a verse in Psalms that said that God is with us when we're in pain. And I used to think that means that, well, God's a nice guy, and his children are suffering, he'll kind of sit by our side and hold our hand. And I realized that might be some level it means that, but it's not what it really means. That what it meant to me when I had this insight was that when you feel that pain and lose a sense of the personal, sorry, please switch your phones up, everybody. You lose a sense of the personal, you feel something deeper. You go to a deeper place, and in my mind, that's when you open yourself up to a deep experience and a sense of godliness, a sense of something more meaningful. more impersonal. So I think that when a person's in pain, when a person's suffering, there is the potential there. There's the potential to find something much deeper within themselves. I think that's why often we find that when it comes to sharing the principles with people, it's very often people who are struggling and suffering maybe in their life that have a sense of openness to it, because the personal thinking means less to them. They're able to see beyond it, something deeper. And that was the insight that I had. And here's to me how that insight worked, is that I felt something, felt a sense of peace within myself, and from that sense of peace, that idea occurred to me. And in my mind, the insight wasn't the idea, the insight was a sense of peace. The insight was the feeling. I believe an insight is a feeling. It's not the message. It's not the message that arises from the feeling. It's the feeling itself. And what we have a tendency to do when you get an insight is go looking at the information. Is go looking towards the information that the insight provides, as opposed to allowing ourselves to just to experience and enjoy the feeling that's behind it. Because I believe that the feeling behind it is much more valuable and much more meaningful and much more touching than the actual message. You know, what's the message? It's a useful piece of information, it's a nice idea, it's something that I can be impressed with and share with other people, and useful for me if I'm going through pain in my life, and might be useful for other people. But the feeling that's behind it is something transcendent, is something to be touched by and to be almost eternally touched by. Because I do think that it's not that you have an insight and the experience passes and then you wait for the next one. I think it's that you have an insight and then you change by that insight. And when the next one comes along, however long it might take and whenever it might come, there's a deeper sense of receptiveness to that next one. There's a little bit more openness, there's a little bit more sense of it, there's a little bit more connection in it. And so there's kind of a building that goes on. It's not that when it passes, you've lost it. It's that when it passes, you're kind of thinking about something else. That's true. But there's something there that was touched. This is how it works for me. Something that I was kind of touched with inside. And when the next one comes along, it's kind of being sown on more fertile ground. And the ground kind of gets more and more fertile as one gets kind of more and more experiences of these insights. But like I say, if you go looking for the content, I find that you lose the essence. You lose what's behind it. You lose the feeling because you're looking for the form. And we can do this all the time. You know, the form is so much more immediate. It's so much more discernible to us that we're attracted to it. And so the form of the message of the insight is very attractive. It's like, wow, that's really a great idea. Let me start thinking about that. And let me start considering what that might. And as soon as you do that, you've detached it. You've kind of cut it off from its source. And all you've got left is the idea, but it's not rooted anymore. It's like a flower. It's like the minute you cut the flower, it's dying. Now, it might take you a little while to die. You put it in some water, you might be able to salvage it for a little longer, but in essence, that flower is dying the minute you cut it. And I think the minute you cut an idea off from the source of the feeling behind it, by looking to it, by looking into the form of it, I think we start to lose the feeling. And when we lose the feeling, we lose that sense of connection, we lose the essence of what it's about. It's kind of like, here's how I see it. It's like, look at it like a piece of glass, let's say. On that piece of glass, you have some paint, and that paint is an image, let's say. And let's say there's some light shining through the glass. So, if you're looking beyond the glass to the light, You won't see the image. And equally, if you focus on the image, you won't notice the light. The light's creating the image, without a doubt, but you're not seeing that happening, you're just seeing the image. And we human beings kind of can't focus on two things at the same time. You can't see the form and the formless together. If you're looking in the direction of the formless and getting a sense and a flavor and a taste of it, which is all you can really do anyway, the form kind of fades into the distance, and you kind of don't see that image anymore. And equally, if you're looking at the form of that image on the glass, it comes into really sharp focus, handed, and you lose a sense of what's behind it, and it becomes sort of two-dimensional, because an image on the glass is very much two-dimensional. You lose the feeling and you lose the sense of what's behind it. And this is one of those great paradoxes of the principles. And I think the principle is all about paradoxes. There's so many paradoxes when we talk about the principles. I'll put it in one of the ways that the rabbis put it. It's this type of paradox that it is. The rabbis say that anybody who runs after honor runs away from them. And anybody who runs away from honor runs after them. And I think that's very true. True honor, genuine honor. Not when people honor you because they feel they should or because they want something from you. The genuine honor and real respect from other people. And people will say to me, yeah, but that doesn't work because I was running away from honor and I didn't run after me. I didn't get any honor. And I say, well, that's because you're not really running away from it. You're running away from it, but you're looking over your shoulder to check that it's still running after you. And that's the type of paradox you have with the principle. Is if you're looking towards the formless, if you're trying to find it, you're never going to, because it's not to be found in looking for it. It's not to be found in looking towards it. If you're trying to find an insight, now where's that insight? Where did it go? And it was there a minute ago, I know that it was somewhere. Only I could find it again. It doesn't happen that way. The more you go looking, the more you go seeking, the less likely you are to find. It's paradoxical. It's counterintuitive. It's one of the challenging things. It's one of the things that I found really challenging about this, and I do to this day. Is trying to just kind of reconcile that within myself. That the more I'm looking, the less I'm finding, and the less I'm looking, the more it's just kind of coming my way. So then you start to feel, well, let's do more of that not looking. Let's do more of that not looking for it, and maybe I'll find it. And that's looking over your shoulder. That's the looking over your shoulder that you're kind of pretending not to look. Let's pretend to be really peaceful and relaxed and calm, even though I'm not. But if I pretend, it kind of doesn't go that way. And it's interesting kind of how that works with insight as well. And I'm sure you've all experienced this, and I certainly see this all the time, is that when you have an insight, in the moment, it just looks wonderful. It's like, wow, what an idea that is. What a concept. What an amazing concept. It just occurred to me out of nowhere. I'm just blown away by that idea, by the power of that insight. But if you come back and revisit that insight, I don't know how much later, a day later, a week later, a month later, a year later, it just doesn't seem to have the same excitement. And that idea really looked good to me then. And it still looks pretty good now, but what was I so excited by, And it's the same thing, it's the same point. It's that you weren't excited by the idea. It just looked like you were excited by the idea. You were excited by the feeling behind it. You were excited by the experience, by what you touched. You were excited by what you didn't see, not by what you did. And it looked like what you were seeing excited you because that was the form and that's what we see and that's kind of what we connect to. But it wasn't that. And the more we go kind of looking for things and trying to find it, we're always going to be looking in the direction of the form. And the more we are just genuinely kind of humble and just open to what might come next and what might happen, the more we get touched by that feeling, and the insights just start to kind of happen, and they just start to grow, and they just start to develop, and it's amazing what comes. And then when the insight goes, that's fine too. The next one will be coming along somewhere along the way. And however long it takes, that's okay. Doesn't need to be in 5 minutes. It doesn't need to be tomorrow. It doesn't need next week. It doesn't need to be next year. It'll come when it comes, and it'll come in its right time and its right place. And there's a paradox. I find the more that I'm open to it being a longer interval in between my insights, the less that interval tends to be. And the more eager I am for the next insight and hungry I am for the next insight, the longer it seems to take. You know, it's so counterintuitive. We're just trying to touch on something, and we struggle to touch on it. You know, you can't grasp this. At least I can't. You know, maybe somebody out there can to explain it to me better. But I tell you what's interesting is I wouldn't want to explain better even if we could, because it's just fine the way it is. If at some point along the way my understanding of this develops, that's great. But don't worry if it doesn't. I'm certainly not. And someone coming along and explaining it to me better, I'm open to hearing, but I don't feel a need. I sort of don't feel it's necessary. And this kind of letting go, you know, sort of being disinterested. There's a joke I like to tell, and if you ever heard me speak, you'll hear me tell this joke every time, so I apologize for those of you who heard this joke more than 50 times from me. But it's the joke about the guy that falls off the cliff, and he's an atheist. It's necessary for the joke. And it's a big cliff, 100 meters high. That's 300 foot for you Americans out there. And he catches onto a branch kind of halfway down, and he just to kind of grab a hold, you know, and he's holding on for dear life. And it's a smooth cliff. There's no climbing up and there's no climbing down. And there's jagged rocks at the bottom. And what's he going to do? No, he doesn't know, and he's an atheist, so he's really involved. So he figures he might as well try his left. So he looks up and he shouts up, "Is there anybody up there?" And a big booming voice comes down, and, "Yes, it's me, God." And he says, "Oh, God, thank you, that's great. You know, I'm so pleased that you're there." He says, "Please save me." And God says, "Of course I'll save you." He says, "Well, I'll do anything, God. You know, whatever you want. What do you want me to do? You know, just tell me." You know, I guess in the Jewish context, he would say, "Well, I'll keep kosher, and I'll fast on Yom Kippur, and I'll go to the synagogue, and I'll be a really good boy." And God says, "No, I don't need any of that. That's okay. I just want you to kind of trust in me, trust in what you know." And he says, I can do that." And God says, "Well, do this one thing for me." He said, "Let go of the branch, and I'll catch you at the bottom. That's all you've got to do." The guy looks down, you know, and it's 50 meters down with the jagged rocks, and he kind of thinks to himself, and he looks up again and says, "Well, is there anybody else up there?" You know, it's tough. It's tough for us to let go. It's kind of like what they say, you know, that it takes sort of less muscles to smile than it does to frown. I don't know if that's true or not, kind of physiologically, but there's truth to it, you know, sort of conceptually, that being able to just be and let go and be okay should be the easiest thing in the world. And at the same time, we're so challenged by it. The challenge gets just so difficult and so hard and so. Oh, you know, I got my screensaver on here. Apologize if you hear the seagulls in the background. I keep it on. It's like you know, one of the things that occurs to me on this is you see the great discoveries of science, great discoveries of life. You listen to Sid talk about kind of his insight when he got his insight that really changed him. It was almost like a nothing moment. It was just like, well, it wasn't that he kind of sat and meditated and really focused and really kind of worked himself up into a trance from which he could get an insight. It wasn't that. It was just occurred to him. Just kind of came at a moment when he was least expecting it. And that's when I see my insights come. At the time that I'm genuinely least expecting it. When I just when the muscles on my hand relax by accident and I swallow off the branch, all of a sudden there's kind of something there to catch me at the bottom. But when I'm sitting there telling myself, oh, I've got to let go of this branch there, I've got to let go. It's like trying to fall asleep at night. It's like the more you're trying to fall asleep, the less you're going to fall asleep. The more you're thinking about, wow, what am I going to do? How do human beings fall asleep? Let's analyze this. Well, they close their eyes, okay, I can do that, and then they stop thinking about anything. Oh, well, how do I do that one? Stop thinking about anything. Oh, there's a thought popping into my head. Where did that one come from? Get out of here. And you work yourself up into a state by trying to let go of that branch. And the only way to let go of the branch is almost imperceptibly to happen when you didn't notice. It's like these discoveries of science, it's like they talk about Archimedes. Archimedes, who was, Greek scientist, who was trying to discover, trying to work out, trying to figure out what was it, displacement of liquids, I think, and I'm struggling with it, and it's not getting anywhere, and really working at it. And then he goes to have a bath at night. He's sitting in his bath, and he sees the water coming out, and he says, Eureka, whatever Eureka might mean. And I got it, or something like that. And then classical Greek scholars on the webinar here figured it out. It just came to me. Now, in my mind, it's not because he was, he did see kind of the water displacing out the bath. That's true, but what's the big deal? That's where he got his insight from. Surely he tried that before. Surely he had, a cup and put an apple in there and seen the water coming out. I mean, that wasn't any big deal. He wasn't doing a new experiment over it. But in my mind, it's precisely because he was sitting in the bath. And he kind of just had nothing on his mind while he was lying in the bath. And all of a sudden, having nothing on his mind opened him up to seeing what all of his efforts to see hadn't enabled him to see up until now. It was when he let go trying so hard, because he was lying in the bath, that he suddenly got that insight. Now here's the thing. People might say, well, great, let's just go and lie in the bath and get some insights, Couldn't be easier time. But again, that's looking over your shoulder. And if you're looking over your shoulder, it's never going to happen for you. And that's what I struggle with. I find myself, I'm looking over my shoulder. Looking over my shoulder for those insights. That's when they don't come. Or they say the same with Isaac Newton. Same thing. Again, whether the story's true or not, I don't know, but it certainly could be. Because you would understand what's behind it. He's sitting under a tree. I could just imagine that he's had a hard day at work trying to figure out his theories of gravity. He's been really working at it, and he's been crunching the numbers and the equations and drawing them all up and just getting nowhere. And he goes and sits under this tree and just kind of all that disappears, maybe in the beauty of the moment. And the apple falls on his head, and all of a sudden he's like, oh yeah, that's what it is. That's what I've been trying to figure out. We kind of get insights in spite of ourselves as opposed to because of ourselves. That's where insights come. In spite of our efforts, somehow we still manage to get some insights here and there. In spite of our efforts to undermine our ability to have insights, they pop in every now and then when we're not looking, when we're not noticing, when we're kind of caught off guard almost. Caught off guard, sitting under the apple tree, and the apple falls on our head, and it's like, oh, there we go. That's what I've been looking for all these years. Why didn't I sit under an apple tree sooner? But again, it's not the way it goes. It's not the apple tree, and it's the moment. It's the moment of peace that just kind of came from nowhere that brought the insight. That's what I mean when I say it's the feeling. It's the feeling behind the insight. It's not the insight. It's not, it's shame, and could well be that that's what happened if Isaac Newton kind of ran off to draw up all his equations once he got the insight. Maybe not shame, because we kind of got a theory of gravity from that, and that's been very useful for the world. But in terms of, that theory of gravity could have been a lot deeper and a lot more if he'd have kind of held on to that insight a little bit longer, just enjoyed it, just experienced it. And that's what I've kind of learned to do a little bit. It's just enjoy the insight and be less concerned about the content. I'm a firm believer that if that content is still meant to be there after the feeling of the insight is gone, then it will be. I don't need to grab it right now. There's a tendency for I got that idea. Boy, that's a good one. Let me quickly write it down before I forget it. Well, in my mind, it's less relevant if I forget it or not, and it's kind of okay if I did, because it's the experience, it's the feeling behind it that I'm much more interested in than the information. It's the insight without content. It's the insight looking in the direction of insight as opposed to looking in the direction of the content. Let's put it that way. And I can see if Elsie and Linda on the call listening to this, they're probably sitting there thinking like, that's not what we meant to do. Good well-being. But that's okay too, because, I don't know, you guys can kind of sit and kind of talk about what I was talking about and it not be what I meant either. But it's fine, because what I mean is not relevant. What I mean is relevant to me, but it doesn't need to be relevant to you. What's going to be relevant to you is what you mean and what you understand and what you get and what you're touched by. And if you're touched by something on this call that has nothing to do with anything that I said, that's great. That's okay. That's the way of the world, and that's the way it goes. And I guess you kind of throw your bread on the water and sort of see where it leads, and see where it goes, and see where it takes people to. I have a few minutes left, and I want to kind of leave some room for questions at the end. Always dangerous when you do that, because maybe no one will have questions, but you know what? That's okay. If people kind of feel sort of full enough and satisfied enough by what I have to say, that's great. I'm happy to go and get dinner early. No problem with that. I'm not going to complain. But just my sense of what insight is, and I want to use a bit of a Jewish metaphor that speaks to me, but what insight is and where it comes from, and the mechanism that I sort of understand of what insight, where it's coming from, how it arises, how it comes into form. Rabbis tell us that metaphorically, obviously, it's not meant literally, that an angel comes to every human being in its mother's womb. We teach our kids this from a very early age. The message is so fundamental. And an angel comes to every human being in its mother's womb and teaches it all of wisdom, all that there is to know about this world, all of understanding, all of insight, every little bit, every last little bit that there is to know is taught to that child in its mother's womb. And then when the child is born, the angel pats it under the nose, under here, and the child forgets everything. All gone, all disappeared. And I always explain, well, what does that mean? What's that about? It's futile. No, because it is all inside there. It is all in there. That's what the rabbis mean. No, you say really inside. It's there. It's inside of us. Inside is programmed into a human being. Programmed into our soul. Programmed into the spiritual essence of who we are. We human beings at our core are souls, are godly beings, are spiritual beings. And that spiritual essence is the place from whence insight arises, is the place from whence our deeper understanding of what this world is about comes from. And I like to think of it like that. I like to think of insight as my soul is speaking to me. There's a godly and good and beautiful spiritual soul inside of there. It's just kind of talking away. And insight is when I notice it. Insight is when I hear it talking all the time. It doesn't stop. That spiritual essence is there 24/7, and I know that it's communicating with me 24/7. The question is though, am I looking at the image on the screen? Am I looking at the image on the window? Those colours, those bright, and incredibly attractive and beautiful image on the glass. Am I seeing it beyond? Am I seeing beyond it to that more pristine light that is shining through? That is in essence what is making those colours. Because isn't that the way colour works? Colour is just light. It's just white light. It's just white light shining through different prisms created by different dyes and different pigments. It kind of comes into our eyes and creates an image. But in essence, what we're experiencing is the light. What we're experiencing in my mind is the light of God's creation. That's what our experience is. And that's what I mean when I kind of look at it, that my soul is speaking to me. My soul is talking. But here's relating it back to what I was saying earlier. I'm much more interested in the voice that my soul speaks with than the message that it's giving me. Because the message that it's giving me is already in the world of form. It's already coming into shape. It's already the colours appearing on the glass. Whereas the voice of my soul is the feeling behind it. That voice means more to me. That voice has the potential to touch me in a much deeper way than the actual words. The actual words that it takes shape in, words that it takes form in. That's what I mean when I say insight without content. That all insight really, in my mind, when you trace it back and when you see it deeper, you see past the content, that it's shouting out at you. It's like the content is really loud and the voice is really quiet, and we kind of hear the loudness of the content and aren't attuned to the kindness of the voice behind that content. And I think that's in my mind again what Sid means when he talks about look for the feeling behind it. We'll call that feeling the voice as opposed to the details and the information that's coming from that voice. I guess I'll just finish off. I was going to kind of go to sort of 1:45 here, and it's time for questions afterwards. Finish off with one more thought that again kind of speaks to me from the Jewish Bible, which is that the story is told of the prophet Elijah, and he at one point gets pretty discouraged. There's a lot going on in the land of Israel at the time that's pretty discouraging for the prophet. And he kind of runs away and goes into a cave. And he says that thunderstorm came. Thunder came, but a really loud and noisy thunder. But he didn't find God in the thunder. And it says, and lightning came, bright, dazzling light show, sounds and lights, and he didn't find God in the lights. And then it says that, I know, so I can't remember it now, like a rabbi might, eh? Someone else came and, impressive, some other impressive, found a light thing, and he didn't find God there either. And it says that, kind of hard to translate from the Hebrew, but it called the Mama Daka came along with a voice that was quiet and fine and quiet, peaceful voice came along. He heard God in that voice. That's where he heard God. That's the quietness and peacefulness of the experience and of the feeling. And whilst the form is often very loud, things that will touch us the most, those feelings, are always there in the background, kind of quietly whistling away almost. That's what I would say, whistling voice. But a really beautiful and deep whistling voice. And that whistling voice in my mind, the whistling voice of insight, that produces content, but that is not the content. That's what I look towards in my life and in my experience when I get a sense of that insight, and that beautiful, gorgeous feeling that doesn't come with it, but that is it. Let's put it one more way. Is that we could be led to believe, and might sometimes believe, that when it comes to insight, the content, the information is the destination, and the feeling behind it is the medium, is the road to that destination, or is the signpost to that destination. And the way I see it, that's absolutely not the case. The feeling is the destination. The feeling of the insight is and it's the road to the destination as well. And it's everything wrapped up in one. And the information and the content is just a little sideshow. It's a pretty dazzling sideshow. It's a really impressive sideshow. But the way I see it, it's just a sideshow, nevertheless. And why would we want to be interested in a sideshow when there's an incredible main event happening at the same time? Now that's kind of how I see it, and happy if anybody has any questions, any thoughts, any comments to on.
Thank you, Shaul. If you want to ask a question to Shaul, you have two ways to do that. The first one, at the bottom underneath the screen, you should have an icon with a little hand. You just have to click on that, and I will raise your hand, and I will unmute you so you can ask Shaul. Or you can send me a chat, and I'll do the same. So if you have questions, now is your time.
Don't be shy.
Hello, we are. Okay. We have a question from Luis. So you're unmuted, so you can go ahead. Luis, you can ask your question if you want. Let me read the question for you. You might not be able to connect. So, it said, due to this knowledge, think about paradox. It is said that in order to have more wisdom, mental health, etc., we need to understand the three principles via insight. But we cannot have insight willingly. So it's kind of a catch-22.
Yeah. That is. It is a catch-22, and that's kind of what I'm trying to point to. And in my mind, here's the resolution to that catch-22. The resolution to that catch-22 is that, thank God, we're not running the world. Mind, there's a deeper force, there's a spiritual force behind this world that is running it. So, yeah, if I'm running it, I'm caught in a paradox. And what am I going to do? I don't want to look for the insight because it won't come if I look for it. But then again, if I don't look for it, how am I going to get it? The great thing is that, like I say, things happen in spite of us. We get shocked by by what happens as much as we get caught up, and all of a sudden an insight comes along. And that's like I say, because there's a force behind this world. There's a force behind us that is making it all work, that is sort of making it all happen. And we don't need to do anything. It's like you're kind of in a river, and the river's flowing, and it's flowing in the right direction. Now, the best thing you can do in that scenario is just kind of lie back and float, and let the river take you where you need to go. Now, if you're not in the river, but you're in a sea, you've got to get to the shore, you better start swimming. So we kind of get caught up and think we're in a sea. And so I've got some swimming to do over here. And the more we swim, the more we tire ourselves out. And here's what tends to happen. You kind of get, because you're in a river, so you're kind of swimming away, and usually swimming upstream because you don't realize where downstream is. And eventually you get exhausted swimming upstream and getting nowhere. And then when you get exhausted, you just kind of let go, and then the river sweeps you down, and off you go in the right direction again. So I think just having that sense of knowledge and understanding that we are flowing in the right direction. There is a greater intelligence at work behind all of this, making sure that the river flows. And you're in a river, not the sea, and you really don't need to swim to shore. And the more the more you understand the principles, the more you just see that and know that and feel that, and the more that you just naturally are able to, well, just let that river sweep you down. Now, every time then you get insecure and you get caught up and you get nervous and, oh my gosh, I better start swimming to shore. It looks like a long way away, and if I don't start swimming now, I'm never going to get there. And eventually, somewhere along the way, you kind of get tired and why would I want to do that? And you kind of right yourself again. But there is something sweeping us down in the right direction. And the more you understand the principles, the more you see that. And that's why we always say to people, well, how do I solve this? Or how do I do that? How do I work that? Just learn more about the principles. Just keep looking in the direction of those principles. Because the more you have that understanding, the more you can start to realize and see for yourself that those questions, just asking those questions, you're believing you're in a sea, not in a river. And so I can't teach you how to swim out of a sea if that's where you think you are, when in fact you're in a river. What I can do is I can teach you that you're in a river. That's great. I teach you that, you'll be doing well. Well, no, teach me how to swim. I don't know how to swim. No, I'm not going to teach you how to swim, because swimming is not what you need to do over here. And just be okay with being in the river. And well, how do I be okay with being in the river? Well, learn that it's a river. And if you see it's a river, you're going to be okay. You're just going to flow along and you're going to get to where you need to go. I hope that kind of responds to what you're asking. I like that river sea analogy.
We have another question from Shaul, so I'll unmute her and see if she can ask a question. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Your view on insights. I'm curious, what's your take on teaching? I think in the last River and Sea you shared a bit about it, but I'm searching for when you cannot really facilitate insights. So what's your take on teaching, on sharing?
I understand what you're saying. Facilitate the insights in others. Yeah, that's a great question, and that's one that I do kind of struggle with myself. I understand that question. I kind of feel where that question is coming from. And I just want to kind of take a moment to sort of do that, because I know what you're saying with it. I'll kind of tell you what I I don't have a full answer to it. I guess that's a silly thing to say because that might indicate that I think I have full answers to other things. But I see more clearly the incompleteness of my answer over here. And I often say to people that really, if we wanted to teach these principles, the best thing we could do is just sort of sit in a room with somebody and just sort of say nothing. And because as soon as you speak, that's form coming out of you. The minute I'm talking, I'm creating form, and I'm trying to describe something formless in form. And this is what I think is sort of here's my answer. My answer is I think it's miraculous. That's my answer. It's nothing more than that. I don't see a mechanism. I don't see how it works. I don't see how it can work. I don't see how me expressing something in form, can lead somebody else through that form to something that's formless. And it doesn't matter. I can't do anything but express form. I can experience formless, but I can only express form. So communication is always going to be, and I can't express the experience that I'm having other than by diluting it and translating it into form. So even if I sat in a room with somebody and just let them, so to speak, let's say, feed off the experience I was having, it would still be coming at them through form. I just think it's miraculous. I don't know. I just thank Sid Banks for what he's done and for what he's come up with. And I have no idea how teaching these principles helps people. I haven't got a clue. I'm shocked at it every time it happens. I just sit in a room with a person and we're talking and I'm saying something and all of a sudden they're getting some insights. I'm like, what? How did you get that insight from what I just said? Like, where did that come from? I don't know. And that is one of the things that I love about this process is that it's just miraculous. It really is. It's just something that's happening that's beyond me and beyond all of us. And the more you try and understand it, the more you're going to get confused by it because it's ununderstandable. That's the way I see it. I don't see that that's something that you can understand. But the reason I keep doing it is because I see that it works. You know, I'm a bit of a pragmatist. I see that somehow talking about these three principles and trying to really talk about them in a genuine and honest and truthful way from as deeper place as I can experience, somehow that touches people. I don't claim to have 1% of understanding as to why that should be. Not 0.5%, not 0.1%. You couldn't give me a number. I claim to understand it is pure miracle. And I'm just grateful for the miracle and I'll carry on doing it and wait for those miracles to happen. Does that I'm not saying it makes sense, but does that kind of resonate with you?
Yes, thank you.
Isn't that great? I mean, isn't that great that we have access to miracles? We have access to something. That's why one of the reasons why these principles give me a sense of hope, so much hope, because if ever I think that it's going to be me doing this, me and having to teach, having to touch somebody, having to awaken insights in people, I'm going to be very discouraged. Me, what do I know? What type of clue have I got? When I realize that it's actually not me, I'm just kind of a conduit. I've just got to sort of do the best I can, and it's them. It's them. It's something that's being touched in them. It's a force that's flowing through me. It's not me. Then I can feel, wow, okay, that I can do. I can just kind of sit here and allow myself to be taken over by some of the force and let that force touch somebody else. That's okay. I can handle that. That I could believe might work. That I see works. But if I think it's me, I'm going to give it tomorrow. I mean, I'm hopeless. What am I going to do? What can I do?
We have Tony who would like to ask a question. So,
Yeah.
Tony, it's
Hi, Tony.
all about. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Perfect. Fine.
Shaul, what you seem to be pointing to is about being present in the moment when you have an insight, not being excited about the content, but just the presence. That's the feeling. That's what we share with other people when we're in a room with someone and we may or may not be saying anything. It's the feeling that's present. Instead of being excited about the room or, whatever else is going on around us. And when we do that with someone else, that's what touches people.
Absolutely.
So we see it happening, but it's something you feel you can't describe.
Yes, that's right. Exactly. And that's what I mean when I say it's not me. It's that feeling. I'm not manufacturing that feeling. I'm not creating that feeling. It's just sort of arising within me. I don't know where, what, or how. And it's that feeling that they're being touched by. That's not me. That feeling is not me. That feeling is something kind of deeper that I'm touching on, that is expressing itself through me.
That's why Sid always pointed to the feeling. Notice the feeling.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. I think there's very few things you will, if you listen to Sid's kind of tapes and CDs and DVDs, if you want to kind of make a compendium of his most common statements and phrases, I think look for the feeling will be way up there. It would be high on the list of things that you'll hear him say over and over and over again, because I think that is what it is. That's the essence of it. That feeling is what touches people, and that feeling is what touches us. Right.
You're looking, but you're not looking.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Exactly. we are not understanding it equally, Tony.
Okay, there is a couple of more questions, and I'm going to read the next one because the person doesn't have a microphone.
Yeah.
So the question is, surely the content is the key to the information, to the feeling. To be left with the feeling and not the content would be to miss the point. Why is the feeling more important than the content?
Okay, well, I understand that question. Look, I'm telling you how I see it. You've got to take what you want from it, and I'm talking about for me. I just feel that if the content needs to be there, it'll be there when feeling goes, and I'm happy to trust that rather than feel the need to go writing that content down or making sure that it stays or making sure that it's still there, to just kind of wait it out and see. And here's an experience I've had with that a couple of times, is that I had great insight. And because then the content was really good stuff. And then because I didn't go chasing that content, the content deepened and it developed. And the content a little bit later was so much more interesting and meaningful than the content that when it started. Now, I know if I'd have kind of stopped there and kind of cut it off and said, come on, okay, we're going to go and write this down now, I'm going to go and think about it, I'm going to go and work it out, it wouldn't have developed in the way that it did, because it would have been me developing it, as opposed to allowing the feeling behind it to develop it for me. So I'm not saying that the content isn't useful and isn't helpful and isn't valuable. I'm just saying that the feeling is the essence of the experience. And the more you look in the direction of the feeling, and I'll just throw this out for you, the better the content's going to be anyway. That's the content you're going to get at the end of it is going to be more meaningful and deeper and more relevant if you're not interested in the content than if you are. Now, that's not a reason not to be interested in the content. That's looking over your shoulder. But just as a little aside, I'll kind of whisper it to you that the content's going to be better in any case. So why wouldn't you want to look in the direction of the feeling? That makes sense.
I think so, Shaul. She says thanks. So there is one more question from Louis. So let's see if I can unmute him. Okay, Louis, you're unmute if you want to ask a question. Not sure it works, so.
Do me a favor, everybody, by the way, give me a bit of feedback when you get the chance. You know, it's very hard to like do this. I'm looking at a camera, you know, I'm looking at different forms of human beings, and it's interested to know kind of, you know, was it meaningful for you? Was it helpful for you? I'd love to hear back from people. You can email me if you want. You know, and she can forward it to me, whatever the case might be.
Can I read the question, Shaul?
Yeah. Sorry, interrupted.
Sorry. So the question for Louis is, could it be that we transmit this understanding only to the grade we understand it? Could it be that it's our soul communicating with the client soul?
Yeah. I would absolutely say that. Absolutely, that's what's going on. If I'm trying to talk to a client myself, I'm very limited in my ability to touch them and to move them and to impress them and to give them understanding. But if I let my soul speak to the client, now my soul's got something to say, you know, and my soul also, you know, we share common bonds as souls. We share that kind of a oneness. My soul has the ability to communicate with their soul. And like I said, I don't know how that works and how that goes on. But when, in my mind, when something's coming from that deeper place within myself, and I would certainly call that my soul, that speaks to the deeper place within that person as well. I don't know how, I don't know what, I don't know what, it's nothing to do with me. I don't have any role to play in that process. But I know that it happens because I see it.
Thank you, Shaul. I think, anybody else for questions? I think that's it, Shaul. So
Okay, that's great. Well, thank you, everybody, and I hope it was meaningful and you know, helpful for you.
Before we conclude, just a last word about the upcoming 3PGC conference in September in St. Paul, Minnesota. That's getting closer and closer. So if you're interested to go, and I think it would be an amazing opportunity, you can go to the website, the 3PGC.org website, and there will be information on how to get there and all the information you need about it. Thank you again, Shaul.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Amazing. Thanks so much.
Okay, great. Sure. Pleasure. Thank you. Bye. I get off here now. No, just close that. Okay.